What's up, guys, and welcome back to another BFC Live. I'm very excited to talk to today's guest. But before we go any further, smash the like button and join the growing BFC family. And yes, we got the new hat, the new BFC hat. We revamped it a little bit, but check out the merch store in the description. After our interview with AITX, we're actually going to be pivoting to a different feed, a different link for the bonus stock coverage. So I put that in the comments section. So make sure that you guys, you know what, click it right now and just open it up on a different tab. That way we could talk some other stocks and share some of the stocks that you guys are looking forward to covering this week and getting into this week. So we're going to talk about all that on that different feed. So, all right, let's get into this. All right, let's get into our guest of the day. Back at it, man. I'm telling you, I love doing this. I absolutely love doing this. And I love doing this with merch. Gotta say, I feel cool. All right. Our guest today, Troy McCanna, Chief Security Officer and Senior VP of Sales, and CEO Steve Reinharz. Let's bring him in. Gentlemen, welcome back to the BFC. How are we doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, Eric. Doing great. I'm doing great this morning. You know I love our chats. I love them so much. I brought on a special guest.
Yeah, the elephant in the room. Oh my gosh. We have a newbie. Troy, welcome to the BFC.
How are you, Eric? Great to be here. Appreciate it. This is awesome. And you are right. Your merch is cool. You do look cool.
I brag about the logo all the time. Producer Rob did a great job, and Sam did a great job with the merch store. So, you know, I'm just one thing I'm very, very thankful for. So very, very thankful to you guys. Now, Troy, talk a little bit about your role with AITX.
Yeah, so I'm at AITX and RAD specifically. I'm the chief security officer. So of course I get to kind of oversee the general security of our staff, our employees, our facilities. But also last year I was very, very honored to be elevated to the senior vice president of revenue operations. So I get to be a part of the team that is responsible for bringing the RAD solutions to the world, right? And finding the fits where we're great and trying to make customers happy. And most importantly, bringing some safety and security to them as well.
Cool. And now you were, and this is something I just found out before the show and backstage, you were a regional supervisor for the FBI. All right. You didn't do a background check on me, did you?
Well, it wouldn't be smart of me to tell you whether we did or we didn't. But
so what does that experience bring to the table for AITX?
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, I spent 23 years with the FBI, mainly out of the Detroit division, where I ran a multi-jurisdictional organized crime and narcotics task force. But more importantly, as it relates to AITX, I spent my time also as the person that was responsible for facility security and the liaison for the NFL and the NHL out of that region. Wow. So what that did is it exposed me over the last 10 to 15 years to all the technology that was coming forward in those spaces and what was new. And along the way, I got exposed to RAD and AITX. And I got to tell you, over about a 6-month period of doing my due diligence and deep dive, there was nothing out there on the landscape that was doing what this company was doing. And then dear to my heart, and hopefully we get to talk about it a little bit, RAD and AITX was involved in some firearms, analytics that were really truly bringing safety, one to the education space, K through 12 specifically, where I'd had some experiences in my career that made that kind of dear to heart. And then also higher education, and as well as some safety solutions for law enforcement officers, my family, the folks that I kind of spent all of my adult life with. So it was really exciting for me. It became a no-brainer, and I'm so happy to have landed here doing good things along with Steve and all of the folks at AITX that are working really hard every day.
Yeah, and I do think that we're going to see a presence in this more so in the education system. That's my field. So I have a true appreciation for it. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'd love to hear an opening statement. Go for it. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, I want to lead off with a couple of different things, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about the stock a lot because there's a lot of questions about the stock. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get to the questions, I want to just kind of level set what we're doing here. Okay, and basically we are playing towards a vision of the future that is clear as day to me and pretty clear to at least our team, many people in the industry and many people in the world, although it's not yet kind of commonly known or accepted. But the vision is this: over the next 3 to 5 years, our world is going to change, and we are going to have AI-enabled devices at the edge performing a ton of work that has been traditionally done by humans. Now, this goes everything from, fast food workers, right? Templates of automated burger makers and so forth, packaging. We already do it extensively in warehousing. What we're doing is we're bringing those same basic concepts, which I look at and are so obvious to me, we're bringing them into security and facility control. The purpose of this is, number one, it's inevitable. So why not us? And it was that mantra that carried me through 5 years of really struggling to get this thing moving. So, I know it's happening. We're seeing it happen right now. We're seeing RAD's stationary devices uptick big time in sales. I mean, you see that. I issue the press releases. We've talked about it a couple of times, and that's huge. But over the course of this year, towards the end of this year, and really next year, as our mobility devices really hit, then that vision really starts to come true more. And of course, we're embedding large language models into our devices. We have more, and there's so much happening, but the general idea is that 3 to 5 years, we're working with machines. Machines are doing more of our job. It's more of a normal, natural occurrence to see robots and to be talking to robots. So we're just here to execute that vision that we see. I want to just kind of open up with that.
Right on. Yeah. No, very good statement.
Yep. Thanks. And did you run the disclaimer or the forward-looking statement?
I did.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll tack on to that and I'll say, listen, in this call, we're going to talk about some stuff. Heck, I think I'm going to give my target date for when we're going to uplist to NASDAQ. Okay. I want to make sure everybody knows and they hear it from me. Number one, there's a lot of moving targets involved in building a business. There's no fixed timetable. That's number one. So timing can change. We can pull it up. We can push it back depending on performance. Number two, there's a host of unknown things that can happen along the way that also can shatter the stream. So I want to let everybody know I'm supremely confident and our team is supremely confident, but anything can happen. So just kind of be aware there's no guarantees. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I stated that. Back to you, sir.
All right, well, let's do this. Guys, if you have questions for the team here, put them in the chat. Put them in the comments section. I have a bunch of questions that a bunch of your shareholders actually submitted. So I'm not going to pull them up on the screen. I'm just going to ask you the questions, and you guys can hammer it out however you see fit. I'm sure I'll be giving some follow-ups as well. And guys, if you have a follow-up question, my BFC crew, put it in the comments section. All right, let's get right to it. Our first question is from Jacob Morano. Please address dilution. I've been following investing for over 2 years and believe in the technology from outside looking in. It appears smart, deliberate decisions are executed, but baffled that the stock price hasn't maintained a positive trend. I guess it's a good buying opportunity, perhaps. I'm a veteran and have been in harm's way. I certainly believe in the power of being and feeling safe. Take care and thanks for the opportunity. That is from Jacob Moreno.
Jacob, thank you so much. Thank you for serving. Really appreciate that. Let's talk about dilution. Well, obviously that's the question, so we're going to address it head on. I wrote some notes, which I ran by legal. So I'm sorting between my comments and their comments as I kind of form the response here. So listen, sometimes I feel like being a present and engaged OTC CEO is like running, OTC 101 class, right? Because there's different kinds of dilution. There's different purposes for it. And I want to specify what those are. But ultimately, the question comes down to why isn't the stock higher? That is basically the question that's being asked. And Jacob, the stock is there's no single button that's pushed. In general, there are exceptions. There's no single button that gets pushed that drives stock performance. Stock action is dictated by a variety of factors, including company performance, investor sentiment momentum, general economic conditions, political inputs, investor inputs, Wall Street inputs. There's a whole host of things that happen in order to get the price that we're at. So, it's been a common theme. Hey, dilution is bad. Oh my God, AITX, right? But the reality is is I'd make this bargain every day. And I made it consciously. And I've talked about it, and I'll share it again. If we could dilute the stock by 50%, and if we could gain 500% in company performance and gain performance to the point of operational profitability and get onto or continue an exponential growth curve, and that's what dilution is good for. And we're going to continue straight up. So over the past couple of years, we've diluted, of course, and we've grown the company brilliantly, I might say, and exponentially. And that's why we're here on the OTC. Believe it or not, companies are on the OTC to sell shares, literally. Either the owner's shares, either lenders' shares, so they can continue to raise money and build an organization. That's why companies go public. It's to access public capital markets. And we're no different. The issue becomes, and what gets polluted and perverted, is when lenders and CEOs use this structure to pump and dilute on fake companies, or on companies that have a premise that's never going to get to market, or on companies that aren't staffed properly to ever bring a concept to market. There's a myriad of issues of how a company won't get taken off. Now, in some cases, the motives of the CEOs and the lenders that support them are genuine, and things just don't work out. That happens. Business is hard. Developing a concept, bringing it to market is hard. In other cases, there's definitely malicious or nefarious intent in terms of really just trying to sell shares. And obviously, we're not that case. When we're delivering performance that's 500% over prior year, then we're clearly doing something right. So I want to make it clear, we're going to continue to raise money through public markets as we have, which the market talks about dilution. Last piece on that I want to say is, there's different kinds of dilution, and AITX has been subject to them all. Before I took over as CEO, we had what we all know would be called toxic convertible notes. And these are convertible notes that on the surface appear benign. And when they get reported in press releases and on SEC filing statements, they appear benign. And the what gets published is something like XYZ company took, $400,000 from ABC lender, and the terms are 6 months, 8%, and can convert into, 600 million shares if whatever, right? Like whatever those terms are. And that's all true, and that's all well and good. The problem is it's only a fraction of the story. Because what happens in reality is the company that's received the money generally, sometimes deliberately, doesn't pay the note back. When you don't pay the note back, you go into default. Now, those default terms aren't issued or talked about in the press releases or in the SEC filings. Mm-hmm. So as investors, we have no visibility to it. But those default terms is where lenders make extraordinary amount of money. And I'm not judging them, understand me. I'm not judging them. I'm telling you how the system works today. So default terms might say, hey, I'm going to buy the stock in at, my shares, my convertible note is going to convert at 2 cents, okay, regardless of what the shares might say. But if you default, that buyback comes in at 0001. This is very common. This is not uncommon. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a shareholder, lender, investor, whatever you want to call them, with a boatload of shares at almost no cost basis. And that can significantly drive share price down should that lender shareholder decide to sell or dump on whatever terms that they choose. So those are the dangers of dilution. And I certainly encourage everybody who is looking at stocks to look at the financials or ask the CEO or ask the company, hey, are there convertible notes at stake here? And what are those terms? And what are the default terms? Because that can lead us to destructive dilution. When I look at AITX and I look at the significant dilution that we've done, what I see is from my perspective, a stock that's held up incredibly well because the lender didn't get the shares at 001. They get them at what I consider a slight discount to market. So they're in the same boat with us. They want this stock going to a penny, 2 pennies, 5 pennies. They'll make a ton of money on it. So that is dilution 101. I don't know. Thank you very much for the question, Jacob. And Eric, did I answer it as thoroughly or over thoroughly?
I think you did. I think you did. And I do believe in different types of dilution. I think there, when you have that dilution to add an acquisition or revenue producing acquisition or a merger, but I think a lot of the times what happens is people, they're fine taking the money. Hey, we need to convert our debt. We need to get the debt off the books, do a convertible note. Sounds great. Here's $100,000. But in all actuality, what you want to do is you want to use the profits from your business. You want to be profitable. That's the goal, is to be profitable. And at that point, once you're profitable, then you pay the note back. A lot of times is a lot of these companies, they don't even get the profitability. How many OTC companies are actually profitable? And that's one thing that I'm learning. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So,
That's right. You
and
nailed it there.
Listen, I did run a fun poll. I love doing these Twitter polls lately. And it was a AITX poll. Hey, bulls and bears, will AITX reach a penny by the end of 2024 without a reverse split? Share your thoughts below. And I put, hell yeah, penny by end of year. Nope, no way, Jose. And I like cats. And believe it or not, there must be a lot of cat lovers out there. But that was 22% of the vote. So we have 18 people.
Is this live? Can you scroll down? Because I replied to that a little while ago.
I can't. I just screenshotted that.
Okay.
But you can give your reply here.
I want to get this reverse split 2024 thing off the table again. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time I'm around, it seems I've got to point people to a press release or to our corporate notes that restrict us from doing that. So just to be definitive, there is no reverse split plan for 2024. We're pushing up against our $10 billion share authorized, right? And, oh my goodness, there's 10 billion shares out there. Wow. Still rocking $24-25 million market cap. Still rocking some of the best volume in the industry, still growing exponentially. So as bears will generally try to pump the idea of 10 billion shares. Oh my goodness, how terrible can that possibly be? It's a talking point for a bear. That's just one side of the coin. 10 billion shares isn't a problem if you have a great growing company. It could trade at 001, 002, 003, a penny, whatever it is. It's really just a factor more from my perspective of the market cap. I look at the market cap. Hey, do you have 10 billion shares open on a company with a market cap of $50,000? Problem. If market cap something's still running in the 8 digits, then a different perspective. So thanks.
Right on. I have the comment section is getting going here. I'm going to get to some of these comments, and while we're on it, I might as well just get to a couple of these. I want to bring up Bailey, the investor, trying to think of how to form this question, but I'd like to hear some perspective on the debt. Any ideas of when we can see it begin to trend downward in a meaningful way? Long-term investor and fan. I don't
think of how to form this question. I'd like to hear some perspective on the debt. Yeah. I expect that it's going to trend downward in a meaningful way starting at the end of this year as we turn profitable, for sure. And, my plan is next year to take a massive swipe at the debt. And, Eric, I might jump ahead and answer some of the other questions beforehand because, I like sharing stuff, and I decided a little over an hour ago that I would share my target date for when we'll uplist to NASDAQ. Even Troy's like, what?
Yeah, I'm drumming the
drum roll. Wait for it.
Listen,
Go for
I'll
it.
share because this is public and this has been registered and press release is going out tomorrow morning about, to drive people to watch this. But the plan is quite simple. And this has been the plan for the last couple of years. The plan started out with solidify the technology, solidify the team. Done. Next plan was, the next fit milestone was obtain operational profitability. As we stated November 3rd, and as we'll restate today, we're on track for that this year. So we'll check that box. 2025 plan, pay down debt. 2026 plan, begin the application process and negotiation process with NASDAQ to get listed on that senior exchange and get out of the OTC. That's the plan.
Well, okay. And that's why when we keep talking about reverse split, like somebody did mention, you might need a reverse split to go to the NASDAQ. That's years down the road. I mean, and obviously you would do things to drive up the cost of your share, or one would hope the share price is as best as you can, whether it be through marketing or IR or whatever you do. And then, I would think that a healthy reverse split would be in the 5 to 10 cent range when you get up into those stronger price points, and it makes it for an easier reverse split, but there's many ways you could do it. There's other companies that are finding other ways to go to the NASDAQ, but it sounds like, you're talking about solidifying the tech, boom, solidify the team, get profitable, get that recurring revenue, pay down that debt, and then we could talk NASDAQ. So, you're executing and you're in the middle of that process right now, it seems. So
that's exactly it. And while we're just kind of talking about this, and I want to get to some company questions too, but I know
absolutely
40% of the questions came in related to the stock, so we can hit that right up front. But I've said it before. I think I've said it on your show, Eric, but how to uplist to NASDAQ. And the CEO of OTC Markets actually published a really good article last year that I've pointed people to over the last year, where he basically says it like this. And this has happened to us. We haven't gone down the road, but this happens to us, to me, fairly regularly, where some Wall Street investment bank calls me up and says, Steve, let me bring you to NASDAQ. We'll put $15 million in your bank account the next day. And the way that they do this is they do this with what's called an overnight pipe, which is a private placement. And it's just a Wall Street thing. It could be good, it could be bad. But if the company's fundamentals aren't sound, and if the company hasn't, in my opinion, properly marketed themselves up and down the street and across the country to different brokerages, so they know what's going on, because once you're on NASDAQ, you can get broker recommendations and true analyst coverage. Then what inevitably happens is, man, the Wall Street sharks come out and they beat the crap out of that company and they drive it to zero. And it's a sad thing, and it's happened over and over and over again. So because I am connected to retail in a sincere way, I don't want that to happen. And that's why we're going to execute this plan on whatever timing it might be. That's the timing that I see right now, because when we do our uplist, I want us to be an incredible success story. And we'll be branded an overnight success, of course. But all of our OTC folks that have been with us for years, they'll know the struggles and the journey. Everyone else will think it's overnight.
Right on. And Troy, don't be shy. Don't be shy. You could jump in at any moment and follow up. I'm going to fire off some questions that were submitted by our shareholders. We're going to keep this thing going. From Anthony Bates, why are you not permitted to say who your clients are? Investors would like to brag about that. For example, who is the Fortune 50 company that is your customer already? That would give us something to talk about in the forums and perhaps get the stock price off the ocean bottom. Thank you.
The ocean bottom. Well, I'd take issue with the ocean bottom. But moving on to the answer, looking at my notes, because this particular answer had a lot of red lines from my attorney on it. And I'll take it, Troy, because it's more stock related, right? Eric, let's see if we make sure we do some RAD Dog stuff and so forth if we can. So this is my answer. There is no benefit to a client to allow us to share who they are. So why would they? Actually, it is possibly detrimental to them as a big corporations, since generally such corporations want to avoid security discussions, as it may contribute to insecurity, as well as give a cyber fraudster, that's from my attorney, the opportunity to steal intellectual property. Now, this is me. We're back to me. Take Disney for an example. Now, Disney is not a client, and I do not believe they're in the funnel. Okay, Troy confirms they're not in the funnel.
I mean, that would be some freaking big news, Steve.
Yeah, that'd be some big. I knew it was a safe one, but and then all of a sudden I got the heebie-jeebies. I was like, oh shit, let me ask Troy. But take Disney as an example. They're not a client, but if they started sharing the vendors' systems, equipment they used for security, would it help their brand or would it hurt their brand? It would hurt their brand. They don't want people thinking about security when you visit a park. Want people just knowing that it's safe. They want security as far from people's minds as possible. That is why our customers require non-disclosure agreements, and that is why we adhere to them as we do every contract. That's why, Anthony. Good question. Comes up all the time. I will share that the Fortune 50 customer that we've referenced, there are some strong rumors floating around, which I can't substantiate, but there's certainly been some expert speculation on who that might be.
All right. You mentioned RAD Dog, and Ellen Short sent in a question. Does the RAD Dog deployment with Taylor Police include the capability of weapon detection or drug detection? There's a lot of great questions that were sent in, by the way. Excellent questions.
Yeah. Well, and I'll jump in here with you, Eric. So first of all, I want to address the drug sniffing and bomb sniffing. There is an entire industry of live canine handlers out there in the world that kind of meet those types of applications best. And we're not trying to get into that business. I think that's left best to the real dogs to do that kind of work. RAD Dog's application is more about bringing some safety to the officers themselves. We're all familiar with the 6 o'clock news and the 11 o'clock news year after year about officers. It's what they do, right? They run headfirst into dangerous areas. That's the name of the game. But RAD Dog in this solution gives them the ability in certain circumstances to probe that environment prior to sending in our, super valuable human being assets, and that's unfortunately that's what we are, but we sign on to be that. We want to take on the danger so other people can be safe. But RAD Dog, I'll tell you, I tell Steve all the time, if I'd have had this tool over the last 20 years, I could have protected hundreds and hundreds of agents and officers in ridiculously dangerous situations. But more importantly, and this is the piece I think that's lost sometimes, we also can protect the citizens, right? People think of them as the bad guy, the perpetrator, the suspect. But having a tool like RAD Dog that can go into that kind of dangerous situation, it de-escalates before you have two human beings coming together in a moment of no return, right? Now you have that circumstance that once the switch has been flipped, you can't unflip it. RAD Dog gives you that ability to de-escalate, have the face-to-face communication through the technology, and bring somebody that's in the middle of they're in the middle of a psychological event that potentially can be brought back down, lower the temperature, and maybe avoid that situation that lands all of us on the wrong end of news stories and Monday morning quarterbacking of situations that maybe we can avoid. So that's the true application of RAD Dog. That's why I think it's so valuable is, let's protect people through technology. To me, it's the greatest application we could ever use, for this kind of tool.
Yeah. It's really remarkable that we could use technology, and this isn't just here to save lives in general, especially when you're putting people in harm's way. We sort of, I think, as a society, we do take that for granted all the time, and so the fact that you, being in the field that you've came from, see the value in that, it speaks volumes, I think.
Eric, it's more than that. Troy was an FBI canine handler for a number of years. So there is no greater expert that I could possibly think of in the world to talk about quadruped, robot dogs, and how they act and what they can do than Mr. McKenna. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm going to add, obviously, autonomous remote services is the bread and butter of what RAD does, right? Take sort of low-hanging fruit, mundane tasks and automate them so human beings can do more important things. But in full disclosure, that's not what drew me to this company. What drew me to this company is that same technology can be used to save lives all over the spectrum, whether you're talking about K through 12 and education space through firearms detection, whether or not you're talking about the law enforcement, folks that might be able to use a tool like this to kind of put a little distance between the danger and them while we evaluate. There's just so much good that can be done with this kind of technology on top of, the simple day-to-day helping organizations lower the budget on their security costs, which is amazing as well.
I'll share, because this is another announcement, sort of, so to speak, that we are leaning into RAD Dog LE in a big way, in a very, very, very big way. Taylor PD has encouraged us through their excitement, applications, how they plan on using it, to kind of show me that this is worthy of investing in, because when we talk vision, and that's part of my job, I do see a reasonable future where a single officer in an A car gets out, goes to an investigation, and they have an intelligent, pseudo intelligent, because calling intelligence is a whole nother discussion, but we'll call it intelligent for fun. Quadruped that acts in unison with them. So that day is coming. So we're not necessarily going to have RoboCop getting out of the cop car yet, but we will have human cop getting out with an AI assisted animal for sure. It's exciting. It's crazy. I love it.
It's remarkable. I did have a couple RAD Dog related questions. One from Wayward. Armed human versus RAD Dog. How can RAD Dog defend itself? I think he knows what he's getting at there. Like, you hear the phrase "kick the dog," but what are some processes that you guys are developing to protect RAD Dog as it grows?
Yeah. So first off, RAD Dog is going to maintain distance from human subjects. So if you run at RAD Dog is going to run away. Now, currently, can you run faster than RAD Dog? For sure. No problem about it, right? Do I really care if RAD Dog gets damaged or broken? No. I don't care about it to such an extent that I've told Taylor PD and will tell our other law enforcement agencies that if their dog gets hurt or damaged in the line of regular business, so to speak, we're going to replace it. I'm not worried about that. I need to get the test data. I need to build the best RAD Dog, and for that, I can't have customers, putting it in a padded room. But the other part of it is that if a human attacks an inanimate, an animated object, an AI object, that is amazing because it gives the officers in the space knowledge that this person is, at such a state of frenzy or distress or anger, whatever the situation might be, where they're willing to attack a robot. And that allows the officers to regroup and protect themselves and citizens in the area at a higher extent than just walking in.
And I'll add to that, Eric, just to answer the question this fast. If somebody attacks or shoots or kicks or whatever the term you want to use, a RAD Dog, great, love it. Because guess what they're not doing? Attacking, shooting, or kicking the officer. Yep. It's exactly the purpose.
Yep. Right on. I think that's a great answer. Good question, Wayward. Dark Watcher. All right. How many RAD Dogs can the Rex make in 1 month?
I don't know. I don't have enough. We're not there yet.
All right. Here's another question. I'm going to get to some other questions that were submitted. Are the sensors used on your devices small and light enough to transfer to a drone application, perhaps? This could enhance what law enforcement is using drones for now, I think is what they meant.
No. We certainly have aspirations to have our drone that we call Arrow come out of AERO, come out of Romeo at some time. We had some prototypes done on that a couple of years ago, and it was really fascinating, but it was a little bit ahead of its time. So I think the timing is probably coming up, especially when Romeo comes out. Romeo version 3 comes out. Version 4 might have the drone in it. But sensor package development is such a huge project, just so everybody knows. It's like we've got dozens of engineers working on it every day, evaluating different sensors, everything from their processing speed to distances, weather resistance, how can we insert them, heat put out, like all the factors that go into creating a device. So right now, we're really happy with our RAD Dog sensor pack. We're really happy with our Romeo sensor pack. I feel in some ways that some of the technology has plateaued versus the last several years where there was rapid growth in types of sensors, everything from LiDARs to ultrasonic sensors and video and so forth. So I feel we're at a plateau, kind of like your iPhone. How much does your iPhone change from 11? Probably not much, right? So technology inevitably plateaus before the next breakthrough. So I feel we're there with sensors. We haven't put any time into drones, but I'll share with you guys. Really, I don't want to build our own drones. I want, when we can, to do a drone company acquisition.
You actually mentioned that last show. Actually, I remember you discussed that. Yeah. And I think that it does make a lot of sense. So that way, all your resources and time and manpower is put into the core of your business, and you can let somebody else develop a drone that, you know, would be of use to you and meaningful to you without having to put all the money into it. And then you could take it and then you could adapt it to your specifications. So it makes total sense.
And
That,
it
yeah.
even gets better. There's like 500 drone companies out there right now trying to build and sell their drones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the very first time, I'll tell a quick story. The very first time that I saw a new technology become available and then like everybody start to do development and try to sell it was, but we're dating ourselves here, back like in the late 90s when the video industry transitioned from VCR tapes to digital recording. And we had over 500 video management system companies in the industry, and everyone had VC funding and everyone was out there and everybody was the best. And just as happens in American business, you know, now there's 3 top ones and 25, you know, tertiary VMS vendors. So what I want to, and that means that 500 other companies don't exist anymore. What I want to do is say, hey, okay, as the scenery starts to flush out, is get a deal, get a bargain, buy a drone company that doesn't have the legs to finish commercialization, that's running out of money, and see what kind of deal we can strike.
Yeah. I mean, Troy, I could ask you, I want to follow up. By the way, there's a lot of questions that were submitted, so I'm hoping we get through all of them. But would you see value in getting a drone acquisition to work in tandem with a police vehicle? Actually, I think I sent this is a while back, I sent a patent your way, some wacky device or whatever that came off the back of a car or whatever. But could you see something like that and developing something like that with whatever drone company you may acquire in the future? Do you see value in that?
Sure. I mean, there's, you know, like you said, I loved your term, you know, a wacky. That's the reality. There is wacky ideas, and I call it widget fatigue, you know, being thrown at this, you know, all the time. Do I see value in a true application out in the field of having sort of unified ecosystem with something like a RAD Dog, you know, eyes on the ground, eyes in the air? Sure. But what really matters is, does it make sense when you're building this sort of comprehensive bubble that officers can use? And whether or not it's simple. For us, it comes down to simple application, and does it fit into that process, that workflow of getting out of your car and going and answering a dangerous call. And that's something we would have to work through moving forward, but definitely worth exploring.
Absolutely. Good answer. All right. I have a question that was submitted by Carl Jackson. Could you give an update on the progress of where we are with the Allied Universal nationwide rollout?
Yeah, sure. Or you want to hit this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll take a stab at it and you can follow up what I missed. But, you know, first of all, say, you know, we talk a lot about them being obviously our largest partner dealer, unbelievable footprint and exposure to wonderful customers through them. And, you know, about 10 months ago, the executive team began sort of a nationwide, you know, almost like a circus. You know, we went on tour, meeting with sort of the ground level sales force of Allied Universal and their technology service side, and we're making great strides. We're having unbelievable conversations. We're gaining mind share as being sort of the default thought for automated services and autonomous, you know, response services. And that's what we're doing. You know, Steve has mentioned a couple of times, it's that grind, that sort of guerrilla warfare, grassroots, and it's not different with our biggest partners. We just need to prove ourselves, which we've done over and over again, and continue to, you know, have these great conversations. And I'll end it with, you know, again, we can't get into the, you know, behind the screens of the NDA, but we have wonderful customers because of that relationship, and we expect many, many more.
Steve, follow up.
Oh, I got nothing.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
That was great. Thank
Fill
you.
in no blanks. You nailed it, Troy. All right. There were a lot of questions, you know, obviously submitted about shares and all that stuff. I'm trying to really keep it to the business, but I am going to be asking more questions in regards to share structure. There was a nice question submitted by, let's see, where is it here? This is a good question by Cameron Van. It's a loaded question. I want to say your company is awesome. My question is, when are more companies going to realize that they need your product? It seems AITX has state-of-the-art products, but not everyone is buying them. Is it advertising, word of mouth, or does a big box company need to promote you? Maybe next year you buy a spot in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl ad. I have been a follower since the beginning, and you have broken through so many milestones. Seems like something is missing to get to the next step. Crossing my fingers, hope every company has a RAD or ROSA like everyone has an iPhone. Comments to Cameron.
Cameron, thank you so much for being a longtime supporter and seeing the vision and contributing a really cool question. I see your email address is cam.otc@gmail. That's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, sounds like you're informed. It's going to be a while before you see us spending $7 million on a 30-second ad. I'm just going to say that right up front, right? Like, a lot of things we're going to do with $7 million. An ad might not be one of them up front. What we've been successful at doing is getting into different movies and publications, and driving, helping drive awareness, right? Because we're trying to, hit a lot of different areas to drive awareness and get a little bit of people's mind share, little bit of people's mind share along the way. And I got more answers for you on this one, Cameron, but I'll share that this month is going to be a fun month. There's going to be a couple things that happen. Number one, that crime show, our episode is supposed to air within the last 10 days of March. And, I know a little bit what happened, and, this is kind of funny, but as they were filming the scenes, I was at home watching through RAD Dog's eyes the event as it was happening. So that was really cool. So that's going to come out in the last 10 days of this month. And then one of the movies that we filmed like a couple years ago is having its premiere this month. And if I'm told correctly, again, because until I see it, I don't know, there could be a really interesting scene where the title star is with a Rosa. And so again, I'm excited to see that.
More red carpet Steve? Is that what's going to happen? More red carpet Steve?
I think there will be a red carpet Steve moment on that one. Yes. So those are things that we're doing to get awareness without spending $7 million. So I would say that, industry awareness within the security and facilities management industries is good and growing strong. Troy, of course, shared kind of similar stories to what's happening within Allied. So that's kind of running in parallel to what's happening in the industry. And we do that a variety of different ways, by having high profile boards of advisors, by hosting events with, the largest security company and smaller security companies. And, also in March, we have a healthcare forum, which is going to have applicable continuing education credits for healthcare. And we're doing that with Allied. So a lot of those types of grinded out type of activities lead to results. That said, no question that public awareness is barely scraping the surface. We have a very well-known competitor who has excellent public awareness. And, that's the benefit of being a first mover. So we're going to be first movers in other areas, and we're going to fight our way to the top as happens. But yeah, I do expect significant public awareness of AITX over the coming years, particularly as we start to publicize the move to NASDAQ.
And you know what, Eric, I want to jump on that a bit. Just going back to the beginning of that question, how difficult it is to get into these industries, and we've talked about it, and how we're trying to gain ground. But I know we had our investor event in November, and we talked a lot about specifically talked about healthcare and higher education, and how we really wanted to make an aggressive move into those verticals, and how we were having some really good success with a couple of partners. One of which is public, Scotland Health. What I'll tell you is I made some comments at that event, that I saw that, we were going to pick up some momentum. We were seeing kind of a light at the end of the tunnel of getting aware. I had no idea what was actually happening, to be honest with you. And now fast forward, just 3 to 4 short months, we've had so much interest out of those verticals. We've had to hire 2 team members onto the business development team to address the incoming interest in healthcare, the incoming interest in higher education, and some of that leading, right down to close to the finish line on becoming customers. So what I'll say to that question is that we are gaining that momentum, but we're not doing it through massive marketing efforts like the Super Bowl. We're doing it through what I like to call cut and paste, because these industries are very predictable. Chief security officers in major enterprise organizations find it much easier to just look to their left and right, to their peer groups at other companies, and see what they're doing. And if they're doing it successfully and they're speaking highly about their experience, they tend to just replicate across the vertical. And that's exactly what we're seeing happen, because we have some really happy customers. So that's where we're gaining success. Isn't through spending a ton of money for mindshare. It's winning customers through great deployments. And that's, I see that to be the future of how we continue to grow.
Yeah. And you know what? And I got to say, like, this is just a thought that popped in my head. You know, there is, and this is OTC land, this is trading land, this is investing land. There's a lot of focus, obviously. And I trust me, you guys aren't the only ones in this boat, you know, on share structure and dilution and all this stuff, you know, which is, you know, can be seen as a very negative thing. All right. You know, not something like, you know, you look at something, oh, it's heavily diluted, don't want to invest in it. I get it. But then we talk about the content and we talk about what you're doing. And I think there's a level in my head that's sort of like, it's sort of like a seesaw. You know, I don't want to be the skinny kid with a big fat guy, like jumping on the seesaw and just like, you know, go flying. There goes my hat. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think there's a balance between, you know, having a healthy share structure and doing the great things that you guys are doing. I think that the point I'm going on this wacky analogy is because I think that your development of these security products are amazing. I think they are beneficial to schools. I think they're beneficial to hospitals. And the passion comes through. And I've always said this about you, Steve, and I can see it in you, Troy, as well. You know, when we talk about AI, when we talk about security applications, you could see that you really want to make the world a better place. And so from an investment standpoint, that's what gets me really excited about AITX. So from my perspective, I could look past a heavy share structure. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, oh, yeah, I'm not thinking about it, but I could look past that because of the passion that you guys are bringing to the industry. And that's something that I know that is at the forefront, especially with you, Steve. You've talked about that often. And I could see where it's going. And you guys are all, and especially with the recurring revenues that you guys have recently announced. That's absolutely awesome. And you're going in the right direction. And when you approach profitability, I'm going to be there rooting you guys on. I seriously am. I want to get to some more questions. Sorry, I had to just share my thoughts a little bit and give one of the worst analogies on BFC history: the fat kid and the skinny kid on the seesaw. That's a quote. You could respond to me if you guys would like. Let me get to. Hang on one second. I'm pulling another question here. All right. Here it is. Did I do no? Udo Reberg. Do you have that question, Steve? The company seems to really be cranking sales and simply cranking in growth, but it's not reflecting in the share price. What do you think is the cause of the stock price still plummeting for AITX? And this is that balance I'm talking about. Is it the number of outstanding shares in the billions? What is ATX doing to get the stock price going in the right direction? Thanks very much. If you answer this, it is not meant as a negative comment or question at all. I think AITX is amazing, but really needs to be addressed. So if you could just address Udo, and that, I don't know, that talks a little bit about the balance I was just talking about, I guess.
No, I appreciate that. And his name is Udo Reberg.
Udo.
Okay. Hello, Udo. I mean, I think that we addressed it in earlier questions, you know, like, so I think I addressed it already when I kind of gave my diatribe on stock action and how that all works. I take issue with the idea that, you know, the stock is low. I mean, I certainly take issue with that. I think we gotta look that the stock price translates into a $25 million market cap, which is something. So, but beyond that, I don't want to repeat what we already did. I mean, we know what we're doing to get the stock price up. So Udo, with all respect, great question, asked by several people and answered earlier in the call.
Yeah. Awesome question. Yeah. And thanks for answering that. All right. We have Gordy. This is a question he has. With this election coming up, crime is going to dominate, and you guys are in the right place. Bless you. Let me ask you about that. Are you guys concerned? And I'm not trying to get political in any way, shape, or form, but you know what? We live in a very tense political climate, and it's been increasingly tense over the last couple of years. Are you looking to expand and do further security during November at various police stations or at any other venues or areas to make it a more secure end of the year?
Mhm. I mean, the pendulum swings back and forth. Troy can talk about this more than I can, but it swings back and forth between how how many consequences we want to be enforced, and so forth. And it's a difficult situation. Um, from my perspective, and Troy will give his perspective. The political situation doesn't really overly affect us. We're so heavily ingrained in the commercial industrial part of our world, and that's where we're going to focus. And elections can lead to civil unrest, and I would expect there'll be some civil unrest around the country. Our jobs are to protect the people and property of the clients who have engaged us, and that's what we'll do. I mean, political unrest comes and goes, so our customers stay.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, I can tell you that at Steve's direction, our engineering team, they've created solutions that have amazing flexibility. So I'm kind of with Steve in that I don't necessarily care where the pendulum is on a given day. What I'll say is that we have solutions that fit really well in a lot of scenarios. We have conversations with everybody from, retail security officers through government agencies on a daily basis. What our job is to show them what our solution does well, and them decide if there's a good fit for it in that environment. Through our guiding them through what it is we're capable of, and leave it at that. But we're really flexible, so we can fit in a lot of places.
I mean, we'll miss this election cycle, but in 28, if we have elections in 28, I don't know, right? But if we do, presuming we do, there could be a line of officers with a line of autonomous remote vehicles, mobile devices, as part of creating a line or dispersing riots or saving
polling places. I mean, you could. I mean, that's a big one. Is securing polling places, security videos. I mean, we've seen ballots shuffled around sometimes. So I think that there's definitely a market there for you guys. So
You said that, not me.
I did. I did say that. I'll take ownership of that one.
Yeah, I'm grateful for Troy for his answer because I have such a strong focus on these immediate goals, right? Operational profitability, pay down debt, position for NASDAQ that benefits retail, right? Like that's really what I'm focused on. And when I'm not, I'm thinking about the vision statements of what our premise for the company is and how to continue to fulfill and create devices that fit within that. Right now, my hands are tied because I only have so much money and I got to pay off debt and build this company. But when we do turn that corner, and perhaps that corner's on NASDAQ and we've got access to significantly greater amount of liquidity, man, we're just going to be pouring it on. This is an industry that I feel it's a land grab. Troy's heard me say it a million times. This industry is a land grab right now. We're kind of the first of the line. Yeah.
All right, I got another question here. This one from Travis Vincent. Steve, how's it going, man? You and your team are doing one hell of a job. AITX is looking better and better every day, and I'm loving it. My question is, can you give us an update on how it's going with the patents on the equipment?
Sure. Travis, thank you so much for the question, as always. I'm reading my answer right now. So, I mean, the reality of it is I engaged a Washington-based technology patent firm. I think I did a press release on that. I want to say October, November, right around there of last year. And, his guy's name's Steve too, actually. And he's like, Steve, when are you going to have the time to not necessarily file the patents? Because that's not the first step. The first step is to create a patent strategy. So when we had lunch in DC a few months ago, he's like, Steve, I was like, I got like 90 items that our engineers and software developers think that are pretty unique and we should patent. He's like, okay. He's like, I was like, man, but I don't have, $300,000 to go and file the provisionals on all these. And he's like, well, you might not have to, we might be able to file a single patent or a single provisional, list everything inside. From that point, you could break different ones out and you could do all kinds of stuff. And I was like, wow, that's mind blowing. That's amazing. He's like, yeah. He's like, we need to do a patent strategy session. And I said, okay. Now, I haven't done the patent strategy session with him yet. Our money is going into buying inventory. Our money is going into buying inventory so we get product out and deployed and we build the revenues. And that is really part of our strong focus. So I do expect to get to it. I do expect to make progress on it this year, but no progress, no significant progress has been made to date.
All right. Anand Sir sent in a question. How is AI helping the RAD Dog to be superior? So where are you at with that?
Well,
Anand Sir.
I put a tease image out on Twitter of a RAD Dog, I think last week or the week before. We have a handful of people working on RAD Dog right now. I guess probably more than a handful if you include, the production people and the R&D folks on it. So maybe a couple handfuls of people working on it right now. So we're investing in it. There's going to be announcements about our commitment to RAD Dog LE coming up over the next couple of months. And in those announcements, we will be clear on what we're doing to make RAD Dog LE as useful as possible in its application area.
All right. Let's see. I'm just looking at the comment section. By the way, guys, thank you so much for putting all these comments and questions in the chat. Really good stuff. All right. Let's see. We have one from Zoe Rosenstock. As AI becomes more ubiquitous, are you seeing any rise of security technology competitors? How is AITX positioning to stay ahead?
Mm-hmm. Hi, Zoe. Thank you for the question. I see some competitors or would-be competitors at the very, very low end of the scale of where we're at. So we have multiple years and tens of millions of dollars in developing ROSA, if you want to call it that, or RADSOC, if you want to call it that, or ROS, if you want to call it that, because the lines blur between the software and the hardware and how it runs all together. We've got years, not only of millions of dollars of hardware and software development, but also in vision. And so I'm very, very confident that there's nobody close to us in what we're doing. And I do lay awake at night, paranoid, in general, fairly paranoid about losing our technological lead and wondering what pieces on the chessboard I have to move around to make sure that we have a 2 to 3 year lead. Competition will be good, and it will be good for us. It will further legitimize and give credibility to autonomous remote services, which of course we coined and wrote the book on. So I'm not fearful of that at all. I'm fearful of not being able to meet demand. I will say that because we haven't dug into our backlog as much as I've wanted to over the last few months, that we have not been able to meet demand, which is why instead of spending money on patents, we're going to be spending money on inventory so we can get these devices out. But there's no one that I look at and I'm like, oh my goodness, look at these guys. They're doing it full autonomous remote services and they have a roadmap to stationary and mobile devices and their software covers ROS and disrupts the industry. I don't see anybody like that. I see like a camera company that's doing human detection. That's the kind of stuff that I see on the low end.
Right on. Do you guys have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, I do. Let's go like another 10 because Troy's got me working all day. Like we got a big presentation tomorrow. I got a prep session on that coming up today. I'm like,
all right, a couple questions here. Now this is from Mike Straight. Hi, Steve. Thanks for all your updates you give via YouTube weekly. And I got to say, you are very active with the updates, regular, very consistent. Love that. I have 1 million shares of stock in AITX. I would like to know why the stock barely moves when there is so much news and comments about how well sales are going. Normally, I thought all that good news, sorry, I'm trying to read it here, would at least bump the stock a fraction of a cent. To me, I'm new to investing, but other stocks I own, if they even mention something about a new sale or new contract, the stock moves up normally. Do you think that the stock will break the 1 cent point anytime soon?
Mike, welcome to the OTC, my friend. Welcome to the OTC. This is like Alice in Wonderland sometimes. Sometimes I put out a press release and I think, man, we're going to a penny with this press release, right? Like, I say, hey, we're revs are on a $5 million annual run rate or blah, 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 right? I'm like, man, people are going to love this. And stock goes down. And likewise, I put out something benign like, hey, Troy and I are participating with Allied on a thingy, and boom, stock goes up, right? So just from my perspective, I'll share with you, I have gone beyond trying to guess or predict stock action on good news or mediocre news. I don't know how it moves. And earlier in the call, I addressed some of the factors that affect stock action moving up and down. I, again, would say the stock moves in a significant way every day. And by that, I mean, if we're trading 100 million shares a day, that's significant movement. What that means is that hey, people are buying and selling. That's movement. People are getting in the stock. We're getting on people's radar. We're building awareness. We're building excitement. And that's all positive movement. Predictions on a penny. Now, the beauty of that is that that's your department, my friend. I can't speculate on it. It's outside of the role that I have. SEC forbids CEOs from speculating on their stock price. But hey, happy trading, and thanks for the question.
All right, a question from Jeffrey Hughes. Please tell me about the future of AITX. Is it time to invest in AITX?
Again, I can't give any input on buying, selling, or holding at all. So that's outside of what I'm allowed to do. I just encourage you to do your due diligence, pick your timing, average up, average down, create your strategy, however you're going to trade the stock. There was an investor who I was emailing back and forth over the course of last week, and he's like, Steve, my entry point is 7 cents. What's your plan to get me back to 7 cents and beyond? And I'm like, I don't have a plan to get you to 7 cents. I have a plan to build a company, to share it, to talk about it, to engage, to get people excited, to build the company some more, and the market will drive the stock to where the market will drive the stock. So that's the best I can do with that. Things like this bring people in, bring eyes in, have them meet me, have them meet Troy, have them meet Mark, have them meet more members of our team, so that they know they're investing in a real company and not some, horse race ticker.
And I want to follow that up, Steve, with this, just as, I'm heavily, let's call it, interested in this type of world. And what I'll tell you is I've never seen a company like this. And this is what you really want to do is, if you consider AITX, pay attention to the available information that's out there, because I've never seen a company that is more transparent and shows what it is we're doing on the daily. So all the tools are there to make your own decisions.
All right, I'm going to get to 2 more questions, then I'm going to give you guys a second to give final thoughts. All right, and this one is a production question. How is the backlog looking? What is the running rate of backlog size? So how are you guys doing in production?
Not as well as I'd like to. There's no question about it. So over the course, really since January, we have been upping production. I'll share that February, we deployed the most recurring monthly revenue that we have ever deployed in company history. I'll probably do a press release on that this week, so I'll save the details for a press release. So that was huge. We actually deployed so many devices that we dug into our pockets. And Troy, you don't know this, but we threw a few bucks at the implementation team, just as a bit of a recognition for the incredible work that they did this month. And we'll mention that in tomorrow's town hall meeting as well. So huge month in February. I'm looking for a huge month in March, huge month in April, and then some kind of mop up out of the backlog in May. The beauty of it is by May, backlog will be restocked with some other huge project most likely, and we'll have to be chipping away at that. And that is why we're working to draw on that $2 million line of credit that I talked about, that non-dilutive line of credit. In fact, I've been working on that for the past week, because that money's got to get poured into inventory purchases and put out into the field. So yes, we're not where we need to be, and we're working hard to get there.
Yeah, and again, I always chime in on the back end of these for Steve. It's Steve's job to keep pushing that manufacturing side and get that backlog dug into. It's my job to keep making that backlog deeper. And that's kind of the conundrum, right? That you constantly have. As soon as we feel on the manufacturing side we might be making some ground into the backlog, I hope to be coming to the table saying, look, I'm going to throw another X number of build units on the books for you. And that's, as much as we want to fulfill the backlog as fast as we possibly can, I would make a strong argument that if there was no backlog, it's because there might have been some problems on the other side. So it's just that happy, tug of war that we're hopefully going to be involved in because the sales are just coming in that strongly.
Yeah. And it's kind of, along those lines, it's like hard, we don't know when sales are going to come in. We kind of have an idea, but you've all seen some sales take 2 years to close. You've seen some sales take 3 months to close. So, Troy has been really good and expressive. And Troy, I'm going to set this up and then you take it over the finish line for me. But what you've been talking to us about over the past couple of months of quality of opportunity, speed at which we're getting through the setups, that kind of stuff. Can you just share some of the stuff you shared on some of our executive calls?
Yeah, I'd love to. The big difference is, I go back a couple of years and we spent a lot of our time on the sales team reaching out aggressively to try to get meetings. And quite frankly, we celebrated 2, 3, 4 unit sales because that was a big deal. It was a part of the journey. I'll tell you now that what has changed ridiculously to the point of upping the hour you wake up in the morning to fulfill this is incoming calls and the quality of those incoming calls for engagement. We're now talking daily to enterprise level organizations that are not looking for 2 and 4 units. They're looking for enterprise wide coverage across 30 and 40 locations, things along those lines. And these are not one-offs. These are conversations we're having every week now. And it is the kind of thing that pushes a company like ours so aggressively in that direction we're talking about. We've got to increase manufacturing. We have to bring on new salespeople to help fill the interest coming inbound. And the quality of these conversations are what I talked about earlier. It's creating that cut and paste environment where the CSOs talk to each other. They all belong to various boards and sit on peer group committees. And we are winning because they're talking to each other. And it's not just out of curiosity, it's telling stories of success. And it has changed our opportunity funnel that we talk about all the time from, first of all, being wide at the top, and now it's not only wide at the top, it's wide at the bottom, and it's across amazingly vast different types of industries. And that's the new norm for us now.
Yeah, and AI is not going away, and increasing security is not going away. So great job working to penetrate all those industry components. Seriously, there are tons of industries that need what you guys have to offer. Closing statements. I'm going to start with you, Troy, and then we'll move over to Steve. Then I'm going to kick you guys out of here.
Love it. No, Eric, just appreciate the time. I love the opportunities to kind of speak to the people out in the world that get to experience our solution. So this was just a great opportunity for me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Steve, it's all yours.
Oh, that's me?
That's you.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, great job, Eric. I love the work you do. That. And I appreciate your audience. I hope your audience grows and expands by hosting this. And I wish you the best for the efforts that you're doing. Bringing clarity, asking the hard questions this industry needs that. By industry, I mean the OTC investment community needs this higher level of education. You deliver it in an engaging and informative way that I believe is without bias. And so I want to encourage you to continue your work. I want to encourage you to, the power that you have, like we were talking about earlier this morning, encourage people to make their own due diligence and so forth. Anyway, so great job. Always appreciate it. Really grateful for your time this morning. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm planning on putting together several virtual conventions, industry-based. And one of them is going to be, we're going to do agriculture. We're going to do cannabis industry, but one is going to be AI. And I'm hoping to get that going in May, where we have multiple companies that have a presentation that they put out. And then we have a whole open Q&A and roundtable with minds across the AI industry. So at that, I'm hoping you guys will partake in and show everything that you guys have done. And it's still in the works, but it's going to be, I think it's going to kick ass and it's going to be awesome. I'm sort of excited about it. So I look forward to hosting you guys there.
I'm looking forward to more details on it. And I am looking forward to being a strong participant in it.
Awesome. All right, that's it, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Troy. I'll see you on the next call in a minute.
Yep. Bye now, everybody.
Bye.
All right. So, guys, check out the comment section. What I did was I put a link. I'm going to hop over to this link right now. So I'm going to sign off here, and then we're going to talk some stocks. That's what we're going to do. I know a couple of you guys have really been wanting for me to update you on a couple specifically, but I'm going to be brief, and that's it. That's all I got. And I'm just going to say, just for consistency, there's more that binds us than breaks us. Peace out, guys.